Hello and welcome. I'm Oliver Peachey, Partnerships Manager at UCL.
I'm John Mountford, Director of Music at King's School, Rochester, and Director of Music at Rochester Choral Society.
And I'm Thomas Hewitt-Jones, composer of Regards from Rochester.
It's Friday night. John, Tommy and I have met over a curry to talk about this very exciting concert on the 18th of March in Rochester Cathedral. Obviously, a project of this size is an epic undertaking, and I think I'll start by asking John, how did this project evolve? What is Rochester Choral Society's special anniversary this year? And what did you expect from this concert?
Well, Rochester Choral Society is 150 years old this year. It was founded in 1873. And in the run-up to this momentous date, we wanted to commission a piece to celebrate something of the Choral Society and also to bring together some of the amazing history of this area and really enthuse people again and just bring people together through singing.
And Tommy, perhaps you could tell us more about how the decision was made to write this piece about the local area.
Well, my wife and I moved to Rochester about 2 years ago on a whim, really, and we didn't really know what we were in for, but we've fallen upon the most wonderful musical community in John and his colleagues, and the choirs and the church music here, the cathedral, and also the King's Rochester is a very vibrant music department, and it's just wonderful. So I was incredibly touched when John asked if I might write this piece, because I know he was looking for a commission for this 150th celebration this year, and I was terribly privileged to be asked to write it by him. So on many levels it's been an absolute thrill, but the actual the content of it was really the fact that we all know there's a lot of untapped history in this area that hadn't really been discovered, or at least expressed in some kind of piece of music or art or whatever. So it's been such a thrill to really explore that.
I know, it's so lovely to hear, and the area is so steeped in history. It's so good to sort of really focus on it. And John, I wonder if you could tell us a bit about your career so far and your links with Rochester.
Sure. So I studied at the University of Bristol and got quite involved in church music through that, and did an organ scholarship there. And then I went to Chichester Cathedral as organ scholar, and then to Christ Church Dublin for 2 years as organ scholar. And then after that I came back to the UK and started teaching in schools with choral traditions, and King's Rochester was my first job as Director of Music, so I moved here in 2017, and the appeal of being in a small town with a cathedral, with the cathedral choristers at the same school, and just so many possibilities of music making, and it's really been everything I'd hoped for. Actually, it's been massively exciting, and then with the directorship of the Choral Society alongside that, it's just given me loads and loads of opportunities, and where all of those institutions and possibilities meet, there's some really exciting stuff going on. And when we found Tommy had moved to the area, I was put in touch with Tommy by a good friend of mine called Sam Corkin, who used to teach clarinet here and saxophone, and he just let me know that Tommy was coming here, and we were looking for a music theory teacher for the choristers, and this is somebody who could just kind of pop up for half an hour here and there throughout the week, and Sam suggested that Tommy might be up for that kind of thing, and got to know him and realised that he had a real passion for the area he was living in and the history for it, and he seemed like a very natural choice, and I knew that he would really put his all into it, and obviously because he's a very charismatic person, that he'd want to come and meet the choir and work with them a bit, which he has done, which has been really inspiring and really lovely for them to have other input. And Tommy brings a wealth of experience from his career in film and his classical background as a cellist as well, so there's many strands to this collaboration, which is why it's been so rich, I think.
That's incredibly kind of you. I mean, John, the thing is, I would put that right back at you and say you are incredibly charismatic as a musician and a person, and in front of that choir, they really eat out of your hand, and I love watching it. I came to the Messiah last year. I think it was last year.
Yeah.
And I was so impressed, not only musically, incredible effect, that John created with the phrase, the long phrases, but also the fact that the cathedral was packed and the choir were absolutely singing their hearts out, singing right to the back, and it was just it was really inspiring. So when you said, "Oh, what about this?" and I was just like instantly, "Yeah, I've got to do that. It'd be amazing." And actually, it's funny because school trips to Chatham and Rochester. I mean, I'm sure everyone's done this on school trips, but the castle and the dockyard were the two things. But of course, that was the starting point. But there was so much more, and I think we discussed it and thought, actually, this is really exciting because there's so much more to it.
Yes, it's as you're saying, it's that sort of blend, and how important both of you are in your own respective roles at bringing people together and creating this synergy that works and excites. I think it's so important to sort of bring people together and focus on the social side and just connect people through these pieces. So it's all very exciting. So Tommy, how did you go about writing the work? I know you touched on school trips and sort of local sort of heritage attractions, but yeah, we'd like to know more.
Well, it's funny because I think this is probably the biggest work I've ever done, actually, and so it's a real privilege to put everything in the kitchen sink and the kitchen sink into it. I think in terms of the structure and the way I actually wrote about it, I had a lot of time this year. I had an operation last year, so I had a lot of time on my hands, and I went into the archive and got basically all the books about Medway. Literally read. I mean, I don't remember it all. I've wrote all the notes, but I literally read basically every book there was to read about Rochester and Medway and worked out all the themes. And it's very funny because going through everything, what came out the other end was essentially the human essence of kindness and social conscience, which of course chimes in with Dickens so much, as well as contemporary issues today. But those were the two. I guess the kind of, to summarise it all, it's just like treat our fellow human beings well, and the social awareness of God, life isn't fair for everyone, but we've got to try and come through it really, and I suppose trying to knit all the strands together with all of that, lots and lots of history. But I think it was finding the pillars of what the work was. It was going to be 20 minutes, wasn't it, I think?
Yeah.
And then, unfortunately,
it just went a bit nuts.
40 minutes.
Which was great.
Sorry about that. But,
no, that's great. It was lovely for me to see the previews of movements as they were coming in. And Tommy saying, is this a bit hard? Or would you like this one a bit longer? And things. So, there was a dialogue all the way through, which was really lovely. I think at the heart of much of it is the cathedral building itself, where Rochester Choral Society have been privileged to perform for just about 100 years. Our first concert in the cathedral was 1922.
Wow.
Even though we were founded in 1873. So it was a while before we actually started singing in the cathedral regularly. So
where were they singing before?
I'm not actually sure. I'd need to research that. Yeah, possibly in one of the fine drinking houses of Rochester. I don't know actually exactly where they performed before. Their rehearsal venues now, Divine's United Reformed Church. So the whole thing is based within that very small, few square, 100 metres or so, which is really lovely.
They're so enterprising, aren't they? I couldn't believe it. So they've been so active in not only promoting the concert, but making it into a really exciting event. And last night I went to a lecture they had at the church about the history, sort of in a sense hanging it on the piece, but the history of Rochester from various perspectives. And it was very interesting to hear a lot more detail about a couple of things I hadn't really looked into, such as apparently because Rochester was such a point on the journey to Canterbury at various points of history, the pubs have always been amazing. There was some statistic. There have been so many pubs per capita. It's hilarious.
That's brilliant. Yeah. There are still things in Rochester that I haven't done yet, even though I've lived here for 6 years now. There's a network of tunnels underneath this part of Rochester where we are now, and further up towards the gun tower on Borstal Road. And I think they were created in World War II as a kind of backup in case it was needed to shelter thousands of people, and they were never actually used, but they are kept maintained, and there are tunnel tours I think every year that you can book onto, but they're only accessed once or twice a year. But it's an incredible other kind of area of the history that I've never really tapped into.
Can we do one for our 40th? John and I are born within a month of each other, aren't we?
Yeah,
with
we
Sam.
are.
I've got to. You've got to, especially as the English heritage, so as you say, look after them. And I think with Shorts and the link through from the Esplanade, and it's just a network of tunnels and steeped in history. I mean, you go up to somewhere like Fort Amherst and you see the value of tunnels. And, and it's all, the whole area is pocketed with this heritage under our feet.
Yeah, and last night they were telling us that the early dockyard was actually under Fort Amherst, where the bus station is. That's where, pre-1600, I think it was pre-1700. The Tudor, exactly, Tudor dockyard was there in the mudflats. So you see, and also there was a Saxon burial ground under John's house.
Yeah, well, near enough. Yeah,
in Roebuck.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that, should I?
No, it's fine. No, it's okay. I think that my house is just a few metres further on, but it's very, very close actually. Looking at the map that you showed me, it's just absolutely incredible. So another thing that we're doing as part of our 150th anniversary year is we're performing the Oratorio of St Paul by Mendelssohn, which was one of the first pieces. In fact, it was the first piece which the Choral Society performed in 1873.
Wow.
Incredible.
And this was suggested to me by Paul Steinson, who's one of our members, who is a great musicologist and actually writes all of our programme notes. And he just mentioned to me that there was this incredible link back to Mendelssohn St Paul, so we put it down for the summer term, which is really lovely. It just draws together again the history of the choir a little bit more too.
Gosh, it's so important to nurture that in a society.
Absolutely.
And exciting that you're bringing them together. You're sort of, as I said earlier, connecting people and sharing that passion, not just for music, but for where that sense of place.
Yeah.
Where you are, and Rochester is steeped, as I said, in history, and you're on the pilgrim route to Canterbury and the Roman links and the river and the trade, the bridge trust. So much heritage, and
absolutely,
it comes across so vibrantly in your piece, Tommy.
We're really blessed in the choir actually, because we've got members who've been in the choir for sort of 40, 50 years. And there was a point a few years ago when one of our members was in her early 90s, and she'd been in the choir for 55 years, I think. She's actually retired from the choir now, but she's still around. And our youngest member was just 18, so there's this huge spectrum, and there have been generations within the choir where, mothers and daughters and granddaughters and grandsons have been in it together, which has been absolutely incredible over the years. So lots and lots of people have been there for longer than 15, 20, 25 years, so it feels like it's got a corporate memory, which is really special actually.
I mean, choral singing is such a great community, isn't it?
Absolutely.
A way to bring society together.
And also scientifically well known for its well-being benefits. It's just singing with other people in a room is just incredible.
The endorphins and the camaraderie.
And the intergenerational nature of participation as well, and from mother to daughter, and the collective age of your members and their experiences, their local experiences, and how that comes across in the way they sing, their passion and dedication. And that's why a piece like this is so important, to bring not just the Choral Society together, but to share it with all of Medway and beyond.
And there's it's important to note there is plenty of humour in the piece, and actually just turning the pages for the first time, there were laugh out loud moments actually, which was great fun.
What is history apart from a sort of collection of light touch motifs?
Exactly.
So the Siege of Rochester, the whole movement's built around the fact that the last few bars you can actually put in, "Don't mess with John."
King John.
And I was thinking, well, okay, that could be
Bad
John.
King John, but hopefully not.
John Mountford as much as
King John Mountford.
But it's rather convenient.
Well, that's the thing, you're just touching in that piece on so much of the history of this area, and I think that is what needs to be sung about. It needs to be shared, and I think There's no way that could be, as you said, 20 minutes. I think it's sort of, you could sing for hours and connect it all up. But I'm very excited.
It's very interesting. We've had our first publisher rejection, and that's absolutely normal in my world. And the reason was, we absolutely love the thing, but it's too local. And I said to them, hang on a minute. There's got to be a first for every single piece. And Benjamin Britten famously said, every piece is an occasional piece, meaning everything's written for an occasion. This is our occasion, and I will not relent. I think it cannot be made more general. This is about this area. It has to be about this area, and it's going to be a one of a kind.
William Walton was told when he wrote Belthauser's Feast, he said, well, you're going to have 2 lots of 7 brass players for that concert, so you may as well throw them in. It's never going to be heard again.
That's hysterical.
So
that's a great piece, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's one of the greats, and it's ripped off so much by all sorts.
But I think quite often a new commission, people may think, it's of its time, it will be heard once, but sometimes becomes a legacy piece and it becomes part of the repertoire, and I'd love that for Regards from Rochester, actually. So.
Or to become more of the fabric of local society. I think it's those connections. And, I think this piece is connecting the people of this area with a vast archive of history, and it's not just social history, but you just walk down through Rochester High Street and you see Church and State, the huge investment. From sort of 1,000 years ago right up to now, and you have everything under the cobbled streets that's been there before and since, and you walk to the bridge and you see the benches that have the different phases of the bridge etched into them, so you can see the development of the Rochester Bridge through the ages. Because the Bridge Trust have invested, they want people locally to know about the history of what's around them. And it's small things like that that make this area quite so special, because all you have to do is walk out your front door and you just come across things. And that's not just Rochester High Street, that's the entirety of this Medway region and across Kent. It's got thousands of years of history. I know we touched on the Saxon burial ground earlier, but you have the whole of the North Downs around us here. We are in a lovely setting, and it lends itself to camaraderie, connections, and a sense of place. And I think that moving back into Regards from Rochester, this piece is doing just that in itself. Through the Choral Society, through the place, the Cathedral, you are connecting people and shouting out about the importance of where we are. And I think that I'm very keen to know sort of how long is the piece?
Well, I don't know exactly to the minute, but I think it's around 40, probably 42-ish. The final movement we kind of added late on, didn't we? That was actually the idea of Canon Chancellor Gordon Giles, who actually was very helpful editing the text and checking it through. And it was his idea to actually have a sort of a unison, kind of almost a hymn. And so we've ended up with the Medway hymn, we've kind of called it. And it's a congregational hymn for everyone to join in, and I think there were 2 reasons for this. Firstly, because we all believe, John I'm sure agrees too, music education should be really free for everyone. It's incredibly important, incredibly important to us as humans, but also to community and society. But the idea also was that I've tried to structure this whole piece so that I've got a quite low attention span myself, and I know what it's like to be sitting in a concert of a new piece of music that's going on and on and on and on for an hour and a half, and so I've structured this piece so that in what I think is going to be the ebb of attention about 3/4 of the way through, suddenly things start happening. One of which is that people will be sitting in their chairs really nervous they've got to sing. I hope.
That's brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's going to really help having the melody printed in the programme, and I'm going to give people a bit of a run through of it first, so they're not coming from cold. So,
and John, of course, I've seen John do this with, congregations and, school halls full of children and adults in concert halls, and I'm sure this will be a very entertaining way to start the evening or start that.
It'll be good fun.
Have John come and teach it to everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very exciting, and I think that's so important to bring the congregation in that way and keep things alive for the duration. So,
something that I was really amazed by yesterday in the talk was apparently in every single time the castle's been sieged or there's been a battle around the castle here, they've used the cathedral nave as the stables.
Wow.
So there was this wonderful picture, I don't know, it was an etching or of just horses and horse manure and just stuff all over the nave of the cathedral, and that's of course where the concert is. So it's incredibly kind of almost meta and kind of exciting.
Yeah. And it actually really brings it home when you walk up the pilgrim steps in the cathedral and you see the big door which the monks could just close to keep the riff-raff down in the nave. And I think that the cathedral nave back in the day was a lot more crass than it is now.
That's really interesting.
And it's just amazing to stand in the same four walls on the 18th of March and to perform this concert, which is about all those events all that time ago. It's just really incredible. I mean, the whole history of the cathedral itself and the castle and the school founded in 604. It's mind-blowing. The things which have happened since then, and still the same institution is still going, which is just something incredible, really. We're very lucky.
And the fact, I find it amazing that the tower that's circular, the castle tower that's circular, is the modern the modern area of the castle.
Yeah.
The footprint of the history is so important as well. So all you have to do is walk past the cathedral to see the edge of the Saxon foundations. A lot of work was done in the 80s to sort of restore that and raise awareness of sort of so much history. So 1,400 years of history, and it's just a lot, isn't it? Just walking up St Margaret's, you get to see so much, and not just the cathedral and the castle, but a true Kentish town, and the prospect of performing this in the cathedral that's been on that site for 1,400 years. And as you say, a crass and rowdy nave, goodness me, the stories it could tell. The medieval graffiti, the connections, and a lot of work has been done on this at the cathedral around the importance of its history and the people in it, and how it's sort of developed and evolved over the years, and how it's weathered the storms of conflict, and various sort of bishops and their own agendas and ways of working, and just, I know I keep coming back to this, but this area is so steeped in history, and I think it's so important that this is not just a standalone piece that you're putting on, that it is the start of something that gets people locally talking about their heritage that I think has been so underrepresented for so long.
That would be so nice, wouldn't it? There are a couple of subliminal references in the lyrics, which are hopefully subtle, but there. One of which I was quite proud of. In the cathedral movement, there's a line about as fortunes rise and fall, and that's a reference to the Wheel of Fortune, of course, in the choir, and that idea that you can do very well in life and suddenly you might lose it all. And it's very powerful even today, I think, isn't it? The other thing that came to mind from what you said was that the Charles Dickens references, there was one, I remember reading something about Dickens always taking his guests up the castle to look at the view and see the cathedral from the castle, and so when you climb that castle, it really does speak to you, I think. Don't you think? You can really imagine every aspect of the history by going up and seeing it through your eyes today.
I think certainly you've got the North Downs, the River Medway, the bridge, the dockyard, the High Street. That sense of place is reinforced by going up that castle, up the keep. So
I love the way that, sorry to interrupt, no, I was just going to say, I love the way that when you have a bridge, and this was kind of explained last night as well, it sort of acts as a funnel, because the economy sort of splays out either end and you get lots of activity going on. a main street or a Roman road or whatever it is that leads from the ridge.
It's been used for nearly 2,000 years and sort of as a main route into Britannia. So I think it's so important that we recognise this, and certainly this focus on the history of our area is something that just needs to continue. So on the piece, I know you've touched on this already, but what can the audience expect to experience on the night?
Can I pass that to John? Because I don't really know how to answer that.
Well, as well as the piece itself, actually, it's we're reminded of the fact that the cathedral is a living and breathing place of worship, and the cathedral have actually installed the most magnificent artifact, these wonderful peace doves, which are going to be lit.
Yes.
In colours to reflect the moods which are going on in each movement. So, and that's going to be really special as well. And they're also very shortly going to take delivery of this incredible table, which is made of a 5,000-year-old piece of oak that was recovered from a bog in the fens, which is, again, sort of blows the 1400-year history of the place out of the water. And just having that artefact there and the peace doves as well is really going to be something, add an extra dimension to the whole night, really.
It's very powerful, and Gordon Giles was saying to us that in some ways it would be a very powerful thing to have a meal, a nuptial meal, or a meal at least on that table, a sort of last supper type idea. I mean, what a powerful...
Well, certainly there's a sense of place. You can't get much closer to that than a 5,000-year-old bog oak table. I think you sort of, you have something like that. And then the poignant peace doves above you. Goodness me. I think that's...
I did wonder if I could run a model train up and down it, but I think that didn't go down well. I think Gordon was up for it, but I don't think he was.
Bring the industry to the table.
And we're quite proud of the fact that, and I was talking to Jocelyn about this.
She's on the committee.
On the committee.
Yeah.
She's got some wonderful ideas, and part of the end of the piece, the idea was that Charles Dickens would appear somehow. And of course, John's booked a wonderful baritone called Simon Thorpe, who we think can theatrically kind of pass that off, so he's up for it, which is very good of him. So hopefully he's going to appear at the very end of the piece, and I think John's got a spotlight organised.
Yeah, that's right.
And I've got a smoke machine between us. But hopefully he's going to appear to dramatic effect at the end of the piece.
Yeah, I think Charles Dickens would have liked that sort of bit of kind of comedy.
I think he would have. I mean, he's a complicated man, and it's very interesting. I'm actually doing another commission later in the year, and I'm actually going to write more about Charles Dickens. This has made me so interested in the whole thing. Would really investigate that. But he does seem like quite a complicated person, but incredible social awareness, and that's what really attracts, I think.
Yeah.
And on that, what do you think Charles Dickens would have made of your work?
I'm not sure if Tommy should answer that. Obviously, I can't speak for Dickens, but I think he obviously had a huge affinity for this area, having lived here for much of his life, and dreamed of buying the mansion at Gad's Hill, and then finally doing it, and living there, having the chalet built, and then crossing in this tunnel under the road to go over and write his works in this wonderful chalet. I just think that he obviously was as captivated as we are by the view of the cathedral and the real mystery and imagination of the whole place. So I think he would be really thrilled that something had been penned and performed in this way.
I hope so too. I mean, the fact that he created the modern day Christmas as we know it, in a sense, and popularised it through Christmas Carol, but also through his own love, childlike almost love of putting on magic shows and entertaining people, and having these amazing feasts. And I would like to think that he'd enjoy the occasion, the event of it, but also the fact that it's all it's all episodic. It's got these little movements, and I think I'd like to think that the way he wrote kind of was in that sense as well.
Well, it's all about engaging people, bringing people together, sharing stories, and making connections. And I think, certainly, sort of touching on what we were saying earlier about sense of place. The fact that you walk down Rochester High Street and you see Dickens' chalet just peeking above the solicitors there, or whatever it is, by Eastgate House.
Yeah.
But there's just it's so underrepresented grandeur, I think, that this area is sort of, it's screaming out for more of this. So
it's wonderful to see, because when we moved into Rochester, the first time I went to look at it, it was kind of boarded up and it wasn't looking. It was looking a bit shabby. I think they put a new information board up. I think they're doing stuff. It's quite impressive. Cool. So fingers crossed they can.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Keep that up.
John, so how have the choir got on with learning regards from Rochester?
Well, to be honest, I think they found it pretty hard. And they have struggled with some of the movements. Some of the early movements Tommy sent through, I said to him, could you write some easy ones after this? Because it's quite hard work. But no, actually, honestly, they have really loved it, and they have found it a challenge, but they do like to be challenged. And obviously with the new work, they don't have anything much to relate it to musically, because there are no previous performances to listen along to. Tommy's very kindly done some MIDI tracks for us to sing to, but it's there are some wonderful resources out there on the internet for many sort of works of the canon, the Mozart requiems and things. You can find all kinds of rehearsal tracks, but for a new piece, actually, we're really kind of breaking new ground, and the choir have loved that, but it has been quite a big challenge, actually, and we've called extra rehearsals. We had an extra one in half term, we're going to have an extra one next week as well, to really polish it and to get it into the system. But they've loved the humour in it, and they've loved some of the tongue-in-cheek references to them as a group, and we're sitting the piece alongside the Handel coronation anthems, which are obviously real classic pieces, and the choir have all sung those before, so it's nice to have those sort of long-standing pieces of the repertoire alongside this new work. The lovely thing about Tommy's piece is it's got great tunes, and that was one of the reasons that we chose Tommy, is that we knew that he had a gift for writing melody, and that he'd write tunes that the choir would like to sing and that people will remember. So that's actually really helped, even though that it's new stuff. There are lots of really memorable tunes in it, so the choir have all been humming them and chortling along to some of the very funny words.
John, you're very kind. I mean, I think, as a writer, I think you always have this kind of dichotomy. Like, do you try and write something that's going to be really of the moment, and grab the critics and have its wonderful first performance at Covent Garden or whatever, that's going to make an impact, but then never get performed again? Or do you want something that's kind of got something about it that's completely unique and individual, but it's also got this kind of very human, like, melody and long phrases and excitement and twists and turns? And personally, I like the latter, but that's my own.
But have the choir particularly enjoyed this? I know you mentioned this in a challenge as a new piece, but in terms of sort of watching them as they rehearse, I mean, is this enjoyment sort of?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And there were some real belly laughs at some of the lyrics as we turn the pages for the first time, which was just so great to see. And yeah, they have been really, really charmed by it, and they have really loved discovering it with me every week. So it's been great, and we're really, really looking forward to putting it together with the orchestra. We're being augmented by the Carducci Quartet, who are an absolutely wonderful first-rate quartet. They really are the cream of the crop. So to have those alongside us will be absolutely wonderful. So we're looking forward to hearing all of the colours come out of the orchestral texture as well on the day. So that will raise people's games again a lot.
It's always exciting, isn't it, the final rehearsal, because it all sort of, hopefully, if you're lucky, comes to life. Yeah. And I'm hoping that I can sort of sit in the nave and just kind of just tweak any balance. So, I might just go, can you tell them to do MF there or whatever? But it's very exciting for me as well. I don't know about you, but first performances never get any easier. You always sit there going, bop, 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 and it never gets any easier. But I think that's part. If you didn't care, then I think that would mean it wasn't going to work.
That's your passion as well, and the shared passion from the choir and the orchestra, and how it all comes together under your direction.
Thank you. Yeah. And I think that having met you, they all want to do you proud as well.
They were so kind. There was a rehearsal John could make, and so I went in and did my best, and they were so kind. They were so kind and so lovely. We actually had a lot of laughs as well.
Great.
Kept it light.
I can imagine.
We were like, okay, well, should we do some Handel then?
Yeah.
And they were like, well, but you're here. Let's do some Handel.
No, there have been some great rehearsal lines. I've been turning to Jeremy, who's our wonderful assistant director.
He's great.
Who is a fabulous organist and also plays for our rehearsals every week. I've turned to him and said, we're going to go from 40 polkas. Can you play 40 polkas for
that joke? 40 polkas up in flames, right? And it rhymes with the previous line. That joke is actually, it came from Mick Lemoyne, who's a friend of mine who was a BBC man, and the reason he's got credit is because that joke is just too good.
Yeah,
it's too good, and I could not have it. So
that's great.
We've got to thank him for that one.
It's really good.
Can I ask a question to John?
Of course.
John, how do you prepare a final performance, and what are you going to be thinking of on the night?
Yeah, absolutely. I always try to remind the choir that obviously we spend 90% of our time trying to get the right pitches and rhythms and words and tuning and phrasing, but none of that stuff actually really matters that much. The thing that matters is communication. At a given point before the performance, one needs to let go of certain very minute details and just focus on the overall impression of the performance, and really, really get people to get their eyes out of the copies, to bring their gaze out to the audience, and to really, really go for the diction on the words so they can really tell the story. And that's what the whole thing is. We're telling the story of the area and of our beloved town and through this new work, and that's what's got to come across. So we just got to forget all of the accidentals and the tunings and the phrasings and things, and just really, really get our eyes up and communicate. And that's what I'll be really working on in the last probably 2 or 3 rehearsals.
And enjoy it.
Absolutely, that's right. So it's their facial expressions which will mainly command how the audience are feeling about it. So
and I'm hoping, we had this discussion the other day with the lighting, I'm hoping that the audience can see their copies, because actually to follow the words is quite important, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they can hopefully feel they're part of it,
Yeah.
From what you've said so far, I can guarantee they will want to sing along and engage and participate, and I think
for sure,
the communication is key, and just being able to direct and pick up on facial expressions and the way people are enjoying not just performing but listening and listening to each other, and just enjoying being in that setting, but also singing something so original and new that you've written. I think it's going to be a very special evening.
Bless you. Well, I'm really looking forward to hearing it. I'm also really looking forward to hearing Harriet Mountford is soprano soloist, and she's absolutely brilliant, and I'm really looking forward to hearing her soaring above Dickens.
Yeah, she's really, really honoured to be part of it, actually, and to have had the parts especially written for her, because obviously we cast Harriet as the soloist before you started writing, actually, so to have that connection and to have her work effectively written for you is a real privilege and an honour. So she's super excited to do it. It may seem too obvious to say, but singing is really the golden bullet of music education, because it's something that everybody is inherently capable of. I don't believe that anybody is truly tone deaf. I think that some people have learnt to sing, and I think that some people have not yet learnt to sing but can, even if it's a really, really slow glacial process. I think it can be made to happen. And I think that singing is one thing that can really, really unite people and is open to all. Anybody can access it. So I think writing a choral work and something which has an accessible hymn at the end of it is a really great step. And I think that combined with the Cathedral, an amazing orchestra, an 80-strong choir can be really, really inspiring. And £1 tickets for young people as well. So
that's amazing. I saw that come up.
Yeah,
it's just amazing.
Yeah, so we really want to get young people to come along and to hear this and to experience it. And I think that's
the Singers of Tomorrow.
That's a massive part of it for me.
Because I find you very inspiring because you go into primary schools and do outreach.
Yeah, I was there today actually. I was over at English Martyrs in Strood with a few pupils of mine, and we go over and sing with them every other Friday, and then we go to Oaklands and Walderslade the other Fridays and just sing with young people who are fabulous, really lovely pupils. And I've got a few plans for projects in the pipeline which will include them as well. So it's a really good extra connection of this whole thing.
And this is not just a one-off thing. I mean, this is what you're doing. This is part of some amazing stuff you're doing.
Yeah, the outreach programme at King's Rochester is new this year, and we want to do more and more of it, expand it next year. And because we are the Cathedral school, and we feel we've got a bit of a duty to share some of the things that we're able to do with people who might not know about them. So that's quite a unique privilege actually.
That's the importance of accessibility for all.
Yes, absolutely.
It's inspiring because you're encouraging the next generation to come through. And you, Tommy, you've created a work that you focused on the audience. You not just the piece itself, but the audience and their reception of that piece. Okay. And how not only have you done the technical research and the sort of background, but you've looked into the local area, the archives of Medway, the sort of real sort of local connections. And I think that's what's so important in a commissioned piece like this, that you've delved into the history, not just through books, but you've spoken to people, you've gone onto the high street, you've gone into shops, you've invited people for coffee, you're talking to people. And I think that's what's so powerful about this piece. And it comes across, and it is inspirational, because you've not just sort of skimmed the surface, you've delved in, and you've really sort of taken in the heart of Medway, and it comes across here.
God, the number of hours I spent in the dockyard in the last year.
Exactly, sort of hook duck.
Spent enough in that cafe. Yeah, we did the steam train hooker duck, crane hooker duck.
It's brilliant, isn't it?
And you go, a bit more left, and he pulls his sleeve up.
The monsters of that steam comes out of it. It's been a truly fascinating discussion. Just by way of summary, the concert is on the 18th of March at 7 p.m. in Rochester Cathedral. It's set to be a fantastic and engaging evening, and Handel's coronation anthems are taking place in the first half, with this premiere forming the dramatic second half. See you there.